We're wrapping up tonight's New England Newsmakers with a look into the next frontier as major space exploration and spacecraft initiatives are getting underway, and space commerce companies are booming. Still with us, former NASA astronaut and MIT professor Jeffrey Hoffman and Joe Palaia, co-founder and VP of operations for 4Frontiers. Let me ask you in a nutshell, what kind of timeline do you see from your NASA experience of evolving? I know the government has set 2018 as the goal to get back onto the moon, but for having space settlements, exploration, that sort of thing.
The first thing that we need, if you're going to really do this privately, is to develop the ability to launch humans into space, not using NASA or government-financed rockets. The X Prize, which was won recently, was a first step there, and now I am under no illusions that we're within 1 or 2 years of launching people commercially into orbit, because it takes about 50 times more energy to get into orbit than it did to win the X Prize. But there's some very serious people who are investing a lot of money to make that happen, and if I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5 or 10 years somebody succeeds in doing it.
And getting humans up and out
that's certainly the first step.
The first step from there. What about you, Joe? What do you think is going to be the 1 or 2 big key steps you have to accomplish in order to really make a human settlement on Mars in 20 years realistic?
Well, for 4Frontiers, one of the first steps obviously is this outreach and research center. We want to give people the ability to see what life would be like and generate some revenue that way, and get our engineering and research team in place and working. And then the transportation element needs to come online in parallel with our efforts.
Yep.
So while we're doing all of this development work, all of these commercial firms that are looking at the transportation element, we're really betting on them hitting their goals and hitting their targets so that this is economical.
So you're hoping to be able to hitch a ride with somebody else.
That's right.
So
we're not focusing on the transportation element. We're depending on these other companies to provide that.
And from your experience and now teaching, it seems like there are a lot more options these days for the average Joe to at least get interested in space. Maybe do one of these zero gravity, simulations or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. There was a time when if you wanted to sort of partake of the space experience, you could go to space camp maybe.
Right.
That was about it. I don't knock it. I sent my son there. He had a great time. But now you can, for basically a few $1,000s, you can take a ride and spend about 15 or 20 minutes weightless in a zero gravity airplane operated as a private enterprise. And I think that's super, because there are a lot of people, I mean, not everybody obviously, some people could care less about space, but there are a lot of people who are hungry and they're excited by it. And as long as that's true, it's important to feed that enthusiasm.
You seem to give a real sense of optimism, you think that this sort of world and what was only sci-fi in the movies could really happen someday.
Well, I know that it's possible. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And it would be a tragedy, I think, especially for the younger generation, if it doesn't happen, because these are the explorers of the future, and people now need to give them the opportunity.
All right, Joe, I'm sure you plan on right there on the homepage. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you right back here next week at 7:30. I'm Sarah Zapp. Make it a great one ahead.